happy to be hanging out with Gary Hinsche this morning, and I've got a couple of questions to ask him about his latest series.
Cool.
All right.
Welcome to the studio.
Thank you. Thank you. A great backdrop.
Yeah, that's the whole new body of work based on the alphabet.
So why the alphabet?
Well, interesting, goes back to a long history in the design business, a graphic designer in LA. Fortunate to be involved with one of the great legends of graphic design, Robert Miles Runyon, Bob Runyon. He became a mentor, a friend, and a partner, and I ultimately bought him out of the business so he could retire.
This was in LA, right?
In Los Angeles, yeah. And so why the alphabet? Well, because the basic being a graphic designer, you know, the typography is a key element of graphic design. So I've been working with type one way or the other all my life, professionally, and it dawned on me that a letter form, any letter form, is just a design element, and it doesn't carry any meaning unless it's put in context, into a word or into a sentence and then it takes on meaning. So we just take these letter forms for granted. So the idea was why don't you take the letter forms, all 26 letters, and sort of create an alphabet of sorts with the intent of hinting at the letter form, the essence of a letter. What is the essence of a letter form? And then scramble them all up and put them together so that they become the pieces like this. Sure. This is based on the letter M. So since I've known you, I've known about your hard edge, and I want to talk a little bit about that process. Because, I mean, your craftsmanship is it's pristine, it's beautiful, and that probably comes from your graphic design training. But I also know that you are a lifelong artist, graphic designer, formally trained in portraits and still lifes, and you did everything like many artists that get to this level in their career and kind of fool around with something that as ubiquitous as the alphabet every day. I mean, you know, you got the confidence to do that from all of that background. So how did you come to hard edge painting? Well, because interestingly, all that training and all that oil painting and studying under some plein air painters and the like, when I was very young, I became very bored with it because there were so many techniques to it that I felt that it actually wasn't nearly as satisfying, creatively speaking, as looking at a blank canvas and designing. So I moved away from that early on, and I think, you know, I'd like to just call myself a conceptual artist, because as a designer, everything that I wind up doing now is based on an idea or a concept. And so these letter forms are a concept. I've designed now all 26 letters. We're producing a book on the letters.
Nice.
And we're doing and there are 13 paintings now that are done.
All around this size.
Yes, 5 feet square.
To make an amazing installation.
Yeah.
What about the you know, we say hard edge. What about the round letters?
You asked me that a year ago, I think, almost. Yeah, and it was a little bit of a challenge, but again, I've been blessed with hand skills, and the other day we were talking about. So I've developed a craft, a skill. And it's interesting where I struggle is it art? I don't know that it's art.
Huh.
I definitely have a skill, but you know, I at what point does that translate into something that's relevant in regard to art?
I'll tell you exactly what point it happens. It's intent. It's intention. Your intention is to take your skills, your excellent skills in craft, your background of art history and different artists, and how different artists have shunned different, not different designs, but different, modes. Like, it's not abstract expressionism, it's not this. So they've kind of, each artist shuns the last generation. You take that knowledge, you take your skill, and you take something, again, as ubiquitous as the alphabet. I mean, many artists, there's artists that have painted, the same vase like 30 times, that whole history. And you've taken the alphabet and you've mixed it, you've layered it, you've chopped it up, you've Picasso'd it, and you're creating this stunning optical, hard edge, graphic, semi-assault on the eyes with your hand, not computer, and putting it on the canvas. It's intent. You've succeeded in your intention. That to me makes it art.
Okay.
And that it's not the romantic version of, oh, does it make me feel something inside? Does it hit me viscerally? Does it make me think of a memory, or do I know where to put it in an art historical context? Does it make me feel emotional? Is it about a political? No, it's you are successful in your intent. You've taken what you know, what you're good at in your hand, and you have created interesting, I won't say narratives, but interesting focus on each of these canvases. So it's intent, that's why it's art. And it's not an accident.
No, it's not an accident.
It's not an accident.
No, and if anything, it's...
it's not a one-off, and it's not one of a kind. You've done 26. It looks like previous bodies of your work, but you've taken it to the next level. That's why it's art.
Very cool. I think part of the responsibility of the artist is to challenge reality, and
that's why it's art.
This is a perception of the you change your perception of how you might look at a letter form. So
not just a letter form, but something you see every day. I think one of the reasons why I'm so interested in art is it changes my way of thinking. It helps me see things in a new way. And I'm sure you feel the same way. We're seeing something in a new way. It doesn't even matter really if it's the alphabet A through Z.
Oh, at the end of the day, it doesn't at all.
No, it doesn't at all.
No, and that's the whole idea of mixing all up. It doesn't matter whether the viewer sees the letter or not. It makes no difference.
Exactly. Yeah. But it was like a structure that you gave yourself.
Correct.
Yeah. See, that's about intent.
And the structure is part of what's important. Is because when you produce a body of work like designing a font or an alphabet, there are certain characteristics that have to carry through that whole font to turn it into a font, and that's what this does.
Yeah.
So,
do you want to tell us about how you created the work?
I do. I'm not computer literate. I don't design on the computer,
right.
Or work on the computer. I hand draw everything, and I've gone through. I've been working on this as an idea, as a concept for over 4 years. And I've probably thousands of drawings. There's stacks and stacks and stacks. We just moved into this new studio space, but otherwise I could put my hands on them. I've got stacks here. I've got stacks at home. I've got stacks at my other office, and of just pencil drawings, and Pentel drawings and ink drawings. And then they start out with little sketches in little books that I haven't been carrying them around as much lately, but and this has gone through many iterations to wind up where it is.
So you say you're hand drawing, so without giving away your complete process, you're drawing and taping and painting, and are you mixing colors? You've got true color on here.
Yeah.
And they're acrylic?
Yes. Yeah, I work with acrylic today. In today's world, the pigments are so good, and to be doing this in oils, I just don't have the time. So the acrylics allows us to keep working on this stuff on an ongoing basis. I'm working on 3 or 4 paintings at a time. And here today, there's 3 that we're.
Do you work with them on the wall or flat?
Flat.
From above, and.
Flat. Then I put them on the wall, and a lot of the touch-up work I'll do when they're hanging.
Are you so you're pre-treating the canvas or gessoing the canvas? Are you painting the entire thing white, and then do you go in with the black? And do you use the same brush for all of them?
No.
Oh. Depending on the thickness of the line.
I try to not. I'm not very good at it. I try to not mix the brushes so that if I'm using a brush for white, I would not use it for black. But I'll make that mistake occasionally. But the part of the process is building these canvases. People have asked, "Gee, can I show them how to do this? I'd be glad to. I mean, it's not there isn't any real secrets. It's just been years of developing this the way I do it. It may not even work for you, but I'd be glad to show people. But people don't understand that it's the prep,
of course.
It's the canvas and the prep and that makes the difference. It's not the taping and the painting.
I think for you it does make a difference. I mean, there's some artists where it's not as important, but for you it is of the utmost importance that the canvas is prepped a certain way, because there are plenty of artists that aren't as detail oriented as you. But I mean, I think it suits your personality. I think it suits your style.
Yeah.
Who else are you looking at? I mean, I'm looking at the colors here. I'm thinking a little Mondrian, and I'm thinking, I'm even thinking of graphic design logos. And
I've done.
I think
hundreds.
all those come into play.
We at Ramos Running Associates, we designed the image for the 1984 Olympics as an example, and if I was to show you that, and this you'd see the similarities. I don't know. I've migrated lately over the last few years to a lot of black and white because I think it's and with limited color because I think it actually makes the color more important, and the color can sort of lead you through the work. So,
what do you mean by that?
Because the placement of the color sets up almost a rhythm, and every one of these are different. But in keeping, so part of developing the alphabet, I said there's certain criteria, that said all letters have something in common. So these are based on 21 lines. So every one of these letters are 21 lines, black and white lines. And then I developed a color palette, so that this color palette is used throughout all 26 letters. So those are sort of some of the elements that bring it all together.
So you were saying something that I always think is very interesting in graphic design and just in teaching about art. Your eye does jump around to those colors, and there have been studies shown how your eye dances around a work of art, and it's different in the Western world and sometimes in the Eastern world. Of like scroll paintings and everything. So it's a science. I was going to say it's almost a science, but it is actually a science, the way yellow pops and purple, cool colors and warm colors. I often talk about that sort of thing when people say that artwork is subjective. I'm like, no, some of it is objective. There are design rules. There are reasons why something looks good. There are almost scientific reasons why it looks good. So when I first met you, I kept on saying op because you felt very LA to me, and I was thinking of that sort of scene. So do you like that term? Do you look at those sorts of artists?
Oh, yeah.
I mean, they are optically sometimes dizzying.
There's no question that and some of these letters are more active than others, optically speaking. But yeah, I mean, you look at, I mean, who's had an influence on me? Well, I worked, had pleasure to work with a couple of really great architects in LA. Craig Elwood first, who was considered sort of a contemporary of Mies van der Rohe, and he taught at Yale and struck up a relationship with Joseph Albers. And Craig started painting like Joseph Albers stuff. A lot of his stuff looked like Joseph Albers. And that had an influence on me, and I started doing that as well. So I felt like I had a little connection through Craig Elwood to Joseph Albers. But even going back, Vasarely had a great influence on me. I loved his the way he could make color move. So Modrian, of course, just outrageous. And then part of what I've been trying to do over the last several years is try to find my own voice, and maybe I have. So it isn't. This isn't Modrian. It isn't. It isn't Vassarelli. It isn't Craig Elwood. I had pleasure of working and getting to know and actually Frank Gehry. I worked on several projects with Frank, and he introduced me to. He had a strong influence on me in regard to materials and natural materials. You've seen my blocks.
Yeah.
All that plywood stuff comes from that time spent with Frank Gehry. So who else? You look at some of the color field painters. Certainly Rothko has had somewhat of a mysterious influence in a way to me. I've always enjoyed his work, and I like that you can look at it and almost segment it into periods.
Sure.
So
sure. I was thinking his work. When you look at it, which it's meant to be looked at for a long time, the color starts to sort of move or undulate or kind of has a surface to it, which is a lot like all the artists you were talking about in the way that your eye dances over that.
Right.
I think I'm glad you brought up those architects, because I think your work does have a lot to do with architecture and space. Because one question that I've wanted to ask you is, where do you think you fit in, or your style of work fits in today in contemporary art, with mashups of appropriated images and installation and really the age of the internet? So
I'm pretty inept at that. I have not done a particularly good job of marketing my work. I haven't shown at all.
But I'm just talking about the work being not on the internet, but being like, I don't know,
I think it's
responsive to internet culture or something.
I think it's imperative, and I've had the fortune of working with Dana Wiley and the Dana Wiley Gallery, and we're in that relationship. We're going to start chasing the internet more and social media more. I don't know how to do it, and it's absolutely imperative. I think because we're living in the 21st century, you got to get into it. But it was this last 4 years. It's really been about developing this body of work, and the show that rolls out on the 3rd of October. Is going to be sort of the coming out party for this, and then it's going to go. We're going to start to market it.
All right.
Get out there a bit more.
All right.
So.